Hello and welcome to a Week 2 edition of the Coach McVay Show presented by Microsoft Surface. My name is JB Long with my broadcast colleague DeMarco Farr and the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. Following the Rams' first win of 2022 over the Atlanta Falcons, now they turn their attention to the first road trip of the year, the first division game against the Arizona Cardinals. Good evening, Sean. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Good to see you guys. Much better spirits than the last coach's show we did.
I'd love to pick up kind of where we left off at SoFi Stadium yesterday. You're heading in to give your victory celebration in the locker room, and it was one of my favorites, I have to say. But the line that I took away was actually telling your players, guys, you have to have some grace with yourselves. That doesn't come out of the Coaching 101 manual. What did you mean by that?
I just mean, allow yourself to enjoy it. There's a lot of things that we did that were uncharacteristic towards the latter part of the game where I thought the guys did a great job, JB, of coming out, really establishing command and control of that game. And, you don't take away, like I mentioned, the Falcons credit for making some of those plays, but a lot of that was self-inflicted wounds that made it where it got to be tight at the end. But I want them to be able to enjoy it, understand how difficult it is to be able to win in this league, and then we'll be able to correct those things. And it's much easier to be able to correct, as you know, DeMarco, after a win than if we didn't find a way to be able to get that done. But I've taken too many of these sometimes for granted in the 5 years and now being in the 6th year here. And you just can't do that. You got to be able to enjoy every single opportunity, the amount of work that it takes to be able to come away with the result that you want throughout the course of the week, and then to be able to have it come to fruition, even if it gets a little bit more stressful than what is necessary. That's what I meant by that. And then, these guys know we have high standards for them, and they have high standards for themselves, but I don't want to get that in the way of the joy that they should still have being able to, get the W, and we'll never take that for granted.
I was going to say, is that hard? I know it's good. What does he always say? First world problems, champagne problems?
Champagne problems.
Good problems to have.
That's right.
Is it tough? I know for the outside world, sometimes just winning isn't enough. It's how you win, but does that creep into you? Like winning isn't fun anymore? It's just a relief?
No, I would say this. There's been moments and there's been times when I reflect back on, just some of the times where you say, man, that's not the type of leader and the type of person you want to be in terms of how much it takes and the appreciation for everybody that's contributing to that. So there's been moments in my past that I would say I didn't probably appreciate the wins, DeMarco, but I don't want to go down that road again, and I do think you want to be hard on these guys, have those high standards, but, Raheem says it all the time. There's no style points in this league, and it's the truth. And whether we won by 30 or whether we won by 1 or we end up winning by 4, whatever it is a win, and we'll take that. We'll move forward. You're not going to be naive to the things that do need to be cleaned up, and we expect to be able to see that steady improvement throughout the course of the year because that's what the good teams do.
How much fun do you have putting that game plan together over the course of a long week? And who comes up with 11 personnel I formation with Benny Sco?
It was a good collaboration just, by our offensive coaching staff. And I think when you have players like him that are so tough, you're saying, all right, well, what are some different things that we can do to be able to have a performance that's in alignment with what we were hunting up? And I thought that allowed us to be able to stay on track. I thought we got a lot of good production out of it. I thought there were some opportunities to even get more out of some of those plays. But again, we'll go back, we'll correct those things. But his toughness, the type of competitor he is, and his willingness to do whatever it takes to help our team win is what makes a guy like him special. And he's going to continue to be a valuable piece of this thing moving forward.
What position does he play? What is a Benny Sco? The guy does just about everything.
There you go.
That's it.
That's right. We were calling that 11 Irish because the Notre Dame guy was in the eye.
I thought it was Johnny Munt wearing his uniform. Wow.
I know. You know what? He is tough. I mean, I think in terms of a lot of the things that you love so much about Johnny Munt, Ben brings that to our offense. That physicality, even from a receiver position. Guys feed off that. I thought the guys were excited about, activating a couple of those different things that you guys saw yesterday, and he did a really nice job.
I saw you in the locker room with him, and you pointed at him and said, I appreciate you. And I said, man, really, Ben, fullback? And he goes, I'm a football player.
That's exactly right.
I loved it.
Yeah, I do too. And that says everything that you want. You want football players. When you've got versatile weapons and pieces like him, you have the ability to be able to present a bunch of different things out of the same personnel grouping. And so that can do some things that create advantages and put the edges back in our favor a little bit. We'll see how much that becomes something if we feel like it's something that we want to utilize this week. But it was definitely helpful yesterday against the Falcons.
See, he's going to keep people up. till midnight trying to figure this stuff out.
Sure. A more complex team to prepare for this week. It's one thing to have an individual willing to do it and able to do it. From a coaching perspective, how do you teach them to do it on a short week? I mean, Eric Yarber does so much for this team. Is he now teaching fullback?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's a great collaboration of our coaches. You know, Yarbs has such a great feel for everything that we're doing, him being one of the few guys that's left from the original 2017 staff. But he's a great coach, great teacher. He has such a great big picture perspective. He and Greg Olson have done an outstanding job with those guys. And I enjoyed being able to spend a little bit of time talking, with Ben about, the run game this week and kind of where he fits. But he's done that before in previous years. He played fullback when he was younger. He had mentioned to me, but I thought it was a really seamless transition. And in a lot of instances, he's doing very similar types of things. They're just from some different locations. And now you just get your hand in the dirt. And I saw him do that at Notre Dame. So this wasn't something that he hasn't done before in terms of, being in a 3-point stance. But he really did a really great job and was really pleased with his overall performance yesterday. And, there were some other opportunities that maybe he had to be able to get a little bit more involved in the pass game, but those will come. And that's a big thing for him.
I'm sick for Tremaine Ankrum.
Me too.
I really am. But what a great job by your O-line.
Yeah.
Running backs, tight ends, everybody in pass protection. Marked improvement from one game to the next.
It was awesome, and I think a key part of that, DeMarco, was being efficient on early downs, where you're avoiding a lot of those longer situations, whether it's the second and longs or whether it's some of those third down and longs. And I thought Matthew played with great rhythm, timing, and anticipation. I thought the guys distributed the field the right way, but A.J. Jackson came in, did a great job. I mean, you talk about a tough guy. How about Tremaine Ankrum? He broke his ankle on the first play of the game, played that second one, and then you could see, you almost don't want to look at it because we're running that play action where we hit Allen Robinson on the in-breaking cut and could see that kind of ankle goes out on him. But he's a stud, and I hate that for him. We've had some really unfortunate injuries, but to AJ's credit, he came in, stepped up, did a great job, and Coach Carberry and Nick Jones having those guys ready to roll, I thought was an outstanding job by both of them this past week.
One of the great contours of that game plan, the way it played out yesterday, was 0 first quarter targets to Cooper Kupp and not being an issue whatsoever for your offense. In fact, the first time we really noticed him is when he's rooting out a safety to get Darrell Henderson in the end zone.
Yeah, he's another guy. I mean, we got a bunch of selfless football players on this team, and I thought it was great to be able to get the ball spread around. You saw Higbee get involved. You saw Allen Robinson. Benny Sco got a couple touches. Brandon Powell, I think when the ball's in his hands, good things happen. You mentioned the backs already, and then, Cooper's going to find a way to get his at some point. You guys know that, and so he got rolling and thought he had a really just an incredibly efficient game. You talk about just the sideline awareness, and then is there anybody better after the catch in terms of being able to make that first guy miss with how seamless he makes his second touchdown look? Cooper was great. Just got to. I know the only thing that this guy's going to remember is that last play because he's so hard on himself. But he was outstanding, and we'll learn from the last play.
We got to get back to that part about the fumble. But I thought you were mad at Cooper Kupp, like you wanted to see something physical before you threw him a football.
No, definitely not mad at him.
Okay.
Fantasy owners were mad at you.
Yeah, were they? You know what? That's good. That's why I don't look at any of that social media stuff, so I can get my feelings hurt. But they couldn't be too mad after the game. I mean, he ended up having another good fantasy day. So I just thought it was good to be able to activate all of our eligibles. And we've got to do a good job of continuing to get a bunch of different guys involved. I think that's what the best offenses do. They spread it around. Cooper is obviously a huge part of what we want to be able to do, but got to take advantage of Allen and the other guys that I mentioned.
We've had conversations on these nights before about being in the red zone and not really throwing fades, them not being a part of your early years offense.
Yes.
Now you go through Odell Beckham Jr. last year and you have Allen Robinson, and we see what a weapon, what an asset that can be. What does that do to a defense, and how do you strike the right balance between using it but not depending on it?
Yeah, I think what you do is you're activating it versus the looks where you're getting isolation opportunities for those guys. And I think Matthew has a great feel. I mean, there are certain instances where down in the red zone, you might want to run the football, but they play such a loaded box that you're legitimately short no matter how many guys that you contribute to the blocking surface, and you've got a one-on-one outside that you've got to be able to win. And that was what the first touchdown to Allen, was, where he did a great job. I mean, what a release. To be able to get parallel. I mean, you can almost picture a basketball in his hands like he's crossing somebody up like Allen Iverson. And, A.J. Terrell is one of the better corners in this league. I don't think people talk enough about. And to be able to get him off his spot like that, be able to work for some width, I thought Matthew got it up and down nicely. And those are plays that, when you've got guys that can do it, you got to be able to do it. We just, I got to call more. And we've had some success with it. And then picking and choosing that balance is always something that we really try to do a good job of working through as a staff.
He was talking about Terrell the whole game.
Yeah.
Well, I knew by reputation what a great cover corner he was. And he's got a relationship with Jalen, but the way he was willing to stick his face in there.
He's tough.
I mean, that pop he put on Henderson was impressive.
It was. It really was. I mean, that was a good collision. He's a tough, complete player. And even just talking to Raheem about him from when he was with him in Atlanta, Raheem is he's got a great eye for those DBs, and he thinks the world of him. And when you watch the tape, you see that he's got some stressful downs where when they're playing man, or he's in some of those zero coverages, like they'll play in that tight red area when they're basically saying you're not going to run it in on us. Those end up being some tough downs. But what I like about him is he just keeps competing. He had a couple contested plays against Mike Thomas in week 1, but he seems like he's got the right mentality and mindset as a corner, which is next play, you shrug it off and you keep it moving, because those are some tough downs, but only the guys that really are in those spots are the ones that really know what it's like.
What else can you do when you get crossed over? I mean, just take it and walk back to the sideline.
What you say is, hey, that's a good competitive play, and I'm going to come back and try to make the next play. But I'm glad that it was great to get Allen going. I mean, I thought he had great play swag yesterday too, and we needed every single one of his 4 catches that he had.
That sliding catch was phenomenal.
That was a great catch, wasn't it?
It sure was. Kept it off the ground. I thought didn't Cooper Kupp catch a fade too in the end zone?
He did. It was a
kind of a fade route.
You could look at that. It was kind of like a little, sluggo type of deal. But yes, it was a great track, great ball by Matthew. It was actually a similar play that we had tried to run last year against Arizona in the Monday night game that we just missed on the timing, and it was nice to be able to hit that one with those two yesterday. It was big time. I mean, you talk about a track over your shoulder, great throw, outstanding job.
Let me transition to another corner, and I know how ecstatic this organization was to discover Kobe Durant and to find him in the draft process. Speaking with you over the summer, I mean, did he ever jump off the page at you? I know from the offensive side of the ball. What has he done to put himself in position to be ready for a moment like yesterday where he steps in for Troy Hill?
I think just the way that he goes about his business. It's not too big for him. I think he got a lot of really great work against some big-time players in training camp. You could see he's got great short space quickness, the lateral agilities, and I mean he's a great athlete that can roll. I mean, you could see, and he told me that when he had that interception, he had strained his hamstring prior to that, so maybe he would have been able to fully outrun everybody if he was feeling fully fresh. But he did a great job. And I thought whether it was as a blitzer, obviously the interception was a huge play right before the half, and I was really pleased with him, and hopefully we'll see how long he's going to be out, but it's a shame that he strained his hamstring.
Look, Mariota can run, dude.
He can
He's
roll.
fast. Yeah, he caught him, so that's cool.
It wasn't Mariota. I told him he should go to that veteran Bobby Wagner and ask for a block on the guard.
Man, go turn up the field. Don't look backwards. But yes, it was a great play by him.
Post game, looking at him in the locker room, he's got the whole world. The entire media is talking to him, and Jalen Ramsey has to say, "Excuse me, let me get to my locker." I'm like,
right?
What a moment for a young kid. I hope this lives up to what you dreamed about as a child.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not too big for him. He's come in, and Jonathan Cooley does a great job with those corners and gotten him up to speed in a short amount of time, and hopefully he won't be out too long.
A couple things about Greg Gaines that I jotted down. The first was, speaking of post-game quotes, he says, 4th down stops, probably my favorite thing in football. I like them better than getting a sack. That to me just typifies who Greg is.
Yeah, that's a good thing to say. Sure he does. But it's turnover on downs. I love it.
But the other one is that holding that he drew in the second quarter, when they're on the doorstep, eventually turns into a field goal, keeps the game 14-3. I thought was one of the bigger defensive plays of the game.
It was huge. Greg played really well yesterday. I thought one of the keys to the game was going to be our physicality on both fronts. Winning the line of scrimmage on the offensive line, winning the line of scrimmage on the defensive line, and we definitely did that. And I thought those guys were stout. I thought Greg made a handful of plays when his opportunities were presented. I thought he held point on the interior part of the line. That was a huge play that you mentioned, JB. And Greg has been, that's what Greg's been. I mean, he is, he's got a great way about himself. You guys all know he's funny, but he's a damn good football player too. And he's tough, and he can win in both phases, whether that's defending the run or transitioning to rushing the quarterback. And I've been really pleased with Greg over these first couple weeks. Another great example of Eric Henderson helping guys reach their highest potential, and Greg's going to continue to play at a high level for us.
That's a really good front. I mean, obviously with Aaron. I mean, with Greg Gaines and Ashawn.
Yes.
Ashawn, man, in that 4 technique. I mean, he just plays big.
He does. And I thought, really those 3 guys, you felt them yesterday. You continue to see some of the most creative protections to try to handle AD, whether it's putting the back through the A or the B gap. And, Aaron still finds a way to be disruptive, but that is where when he draws so much attention, those other guys have some other opportunities, whether it's, rushing the quarterback or even in some of the ways that they have to be cognizant of him in the run game that frees them up. But I thought Sean, I thought Greg, I thought Aaron, I thought all of those guys did a really nice job yesterday and being able to have one of the things that was a key factor in us being able to win that game, and that was being able to slow down the way that they ran the football and the physicality of their front, which they did an amazing job of in week 1 against New Orleans.
Aaron pressured Jalen Pitt, kind of reminded me of the way you beat the Detroit Lions,
That's
or had to
call.
in your own end last week. Were those
Absolutely.
two guys right at the occasion?
No question. And it was a similar play that they had run where Mariota got flushed to his right and ended up hitting the touchdown off schedule. But Jalen did a great job of being able to recognize it, go up over the top of somebody. But again, that ball was forced to come out because of that inside pressure from Aaron, as you mentioned.
I almost lost my stuff when Justin Hollins got the walk-off, the big sack at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was awesome to end the game, but
Yes.
I'm like, he got it. That was cool.
It was good. It was a great job by all three of those guys. Obviously activated a 3-man rush right there. And I was thinking to myself, thank goodness that we found a way to just finish this game. And our guys did that. And that's why you never take it for granted.
No doubt.
All right, it did not need to be that way. It really didn't, did it?
See, it happens though. They get paid too.
They do.
They get paid too.
The block punt, maybe the biggest reason why I did
man.
have to go there. Why don't we go there next? First of all, is Riley Dixon's leg okay?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm obviously I would imagine that he's sore today. But anytime that you leave an unabated rusher through the right A gap, that's not a good thing for our punt protection. And so, fortunately, we don't have to learn truly the hard way, but we got to be better than that. And I trust that we will be moving forward. But it was a simple mistake and something that can't happen. It did happen, and we'll learn from it and we'll move on.
I saw Powell go out there. I'm like, wait, does he punt? Is he going to punt?
Yeah.
And then he runs backward. I mean, where did that come from?
That's a situation. I mean, I'd be interested to see the last time it really came up, but I thought it was perfectly applicable because obviously you'd love to be able to close the game out after Jalen ends up getting the interception and not have to, have a situation where it comes up that you're punting the ball. But we didn't end up converting that. And so you got 13 seconds left. It's a 6-point game, and you're saying to yourself, all right, do we want to run the risk of another punt where if we get it blocked again, or if they get a big return, now they're in a position to be able to try to win the game? Or do we want to try to run 7-8 seconds off by taking a safety and then we punt after the safety? So it's still a 4-point game. They still have to have a touchdown to win it. And that was a great suggestion by John Wofford. That's something that we work pretty frequently with our special teams. They actually worked it on their Saturday walkthrough. And, sometimes you kind of roll your eyes like, oh, when does this really come up? Well, that was the one time in my coaching career, which I know isn't that long, but I'd be interested to see the last time that an applicable situation and scenario like that actually came up where you needed it. And I thought it was absolutely the right way to handle that right there, given the circumstances and the way that you're just trying to ultimately come away with more points on the scoreboard when that game expires. And real credit to John Wofford for kind of making that suggestion, kind of putting that thought in my mind. And I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely the right call.
Your backup quarterback.
Yeah, I would like to think that we would have gotten to that, but he said it right away. And, it's the power of collaboration. And,
Wow.
We have these situational masters meetings, every single Friday. Joe D does a great job of getting up there and talking about it. But I thought for that to come to John's mind, and then once you start to think about, is this the right play? I absolutely agreed with them, and we did as a staff, and then the players did a good job of being able to execute it.
I think the league had to change the rule back in maybe 17 or 18
They
because
did.
of the Ravens or someone were kind of holding
exactly
on their
right.
punts,
Oh.
manipulating those situations.
They were,
but
where you can really just kind of tackle
We were tough to
guys.
grab, yeah.
And you can, just run off as much time as possible, and that it was something that's a change. That's a great call.
Before we get to the Arizona Cardinals, just to kind of follow up on the injury front, Ankrum, unfortunately, is going to be a done-for-the-year situation. You did get Ode Abouche to your practice squad last week, kind of a veteran presence there. Is he someone who can fortify what's now a depleted offensive line?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a big deal to be able to get him. He's a guy that's got, a bunch of starts in this league, tough, physical competitor. Really enjoyed, the way he handled himself. I thought he did a nice job this past week, kind of just immersing himself into our culture and our team. And he is definitely a guy that we have confidence that can step up and be available.
And then maybe not Troy Hill this week. Darian Kendrick's next in line.
I think
who's
so.
there? Yeah.
Darian Kendrick's definitely a guy that'll be in line, for an increased role. What that looks like will be predicated on, all right, exactly what do we want to do? How do we want to try to defend Arizona? what does it look like once we get Troy's MRI back. But I would be surprised if he's able to go this week. And, we'll continue to monitor Jacoby's hamstring. But it was a bummer, for both of those guys. But really pleased with Jacoby. And, obviously we know how highly we think of Troy and want to get him back sooner than later. But we'll see what that looks like when we get the MRI.
And finally, Van, any closer to the practice field this week?
He started to do some good stuff drill-wise. He's feeling good. He's making good progress. We're still kind of just taking it a week at a time. And, I think I'll have a better idea on Wednesday if there's a chance for him to play this week. But, he looks good physically. And I sure miss having him out there with us. And when he does come back, it sure is going to be a big spark to our offense.
I told you I was going to ask you about Cooper Kupp and the fumble. I know how he handles success. Blank, flatline. How about the opposite? Something like this.
Yeah, I think, you guys mentioned earlier, give yourself some grace. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to our whole team, but I also talk to a guy like him in that instance because you care so much. It's so important to you. And those great competitors, a lot of times the only thing they remember, he makes so many great plays that tilted the outcome in our favor. But that's the one thing that he's going to really stick with them. The thing that would give me peace if I'm him is, the guy made a good play, but hey, let's be careful switching the ball as we're transitioning. We keep it tight to our body. He's done a great job with that. And, in a little bit, when you touch the ball as much as he does, sometimes those things will occur. How do we learn from it and move forward the right way? But he's a baller. You just don't want him to be too hard on himself.
I know there have been a lot of Cooper Kupp and Hunter Renfrow comparisons throughout the years. There was another one yesterday with that ball getting punched out. Cliff Kingsbury quoted as saying, "Usually I've just lost and I'm super hungover on Sundays in Vegas." So this was a good change-up flying home
there you go.
Wow.
With a victory. Where were you when you saw how that game ended?
I was after I did, jumped on with you guys and did the media, it was right back in the coach's locker room. Mm-hmm. We had it on and you're watching that and you're thinking, man, they did a great job of being able to pull that game out, because whether it was, to be able to get the score and then you look at the 2-point convert, for Murray to be able to, create and be able to punch it in. And then they take a delay, it goes back to the 7 for him to be able to hit AJ Green in the back end line. They're looking at that where did he catch it? Did he not? They end up, confirming it. And then for those guys to be able to force that fumble to Renfrow, and then Murphy picking it up and running it in. The only thing maybe I wish is that he had dropped it a little earlier. It was a great job by those guys.
Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for this team. We know it's going to be a great challenge. Cliff is obviously a friend of mine, but we're not friends this week.
No doubt.
Cardinals and Dolphins each overcoming 20-point deficits at half to win. First time in NFL history, multiple teams from down 20 at half to win on the same day. Unbelievable. And so you hit conference play, division play, beg your pardon. The entire NFC West 1-1 as you go to the desert. Wouldn't have it any other way, huh?
Yeah,
Flat at the start.
I think what you can't do is get too far ahead of yourself. I think the good teams, they stack blocks. They get better as the season progresses. There was definitely a lot of stuff that we can build off of. We mentioned the things that we can clean up, being able to try to play a complete game. But I was really pleased with a lot of stuff from that game yesterday. And then it's just about finishing and being a little bit smarter in some of those different situations. But we just got to keep building. We're continuing to figure out the identity of this team. How do we best utilize all the players? We had never thought of, doing that stuff that you guys were asking me about with Ben Skoranek until kind of later on, early in the week was, maybe this will be something that we can do. But it's always about the players first. How do we put them in the best spots to then attack the opponent? And that's, one of the things that you love as a coach is to really try to be able to, have an identity, but also if that identity needs to shift and alter and adjust in a week in and week out basis based on, who you're playing with, that's what the good ones do. That's what we're always going to constantly strive to do a good job for our guys. And this week represents, kind of the same approach, but figuring out what's the best way to play to our players' strengths and how do we ultimately just continue to, get better and have that steady improvement that the good teams do throughout the course of the year.
I think you're getting closer to finding out who you are.
Yeah.
It's hard to know now.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is, and it's such a long season. Everybody wants to write the final story on this season after 2 weeks, which that's what people's jobs are. But I think you got to be careful to get too caught up in it and just be present. Always be ready to adapt and adjust accordingly, because whether it's injuries, whether it's different teams that you're playing week in and week out, the good ones do that, and I know that we're certainly going to do the best of our ability to do that.
Thanks for spending your first Victory Monday of a new season with us, Sean. Good to be with you.
I got all this space over here. I feel like I need somebody to sit here with me.
Now you're good.
Feel free to invite a guest next week.
There you go.
This has been the Coach McVay Show, presented by Microsoft Surface. Hello and welcome to a Week 2 edition of the Coach McVay Show presented by Microsoft Surface. My name is JB Long with my broadcast colleague DeMarco Farr and the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. Following the Rams' first win of 2022 over the Atlanta Falcons, now they turn their attention to the first road trip of the year, the first division game against the Arizona Cardinals.